Welcome to this premiere episode of Building Performance Talk. I'm Leslie Jackson. Conferences often end with these presenters giving this call to action. They spur us on to take our connections and our newly formed inspiration and knowledge and pockets full of business cards and go out and make some real change. But when it comes to civic engagement, when it comes to the sorts of levels of policy change, we often count on our political people to go put on a suit and speak to those leaders on our behalf. Today, our guest is Joe Cullen, the Director of Policy and State Outreach for Building Performance Association. He is going to take apart some of the components of civil engagement and show us that it's possible and it's not that difficult to make real change at a large scale. Welcome to this premiere episode, Joe. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks for having me. My name is Joe Cullen. I work for the Building Performance Association, and I'm the policy director who focuses work on states. We focus on policies and funding and issues that impact contractors in the industry in all 50 states, how they reduce demand and how they spend the approximately $9 billion in funds that are dedicated to energy efficiency programs around the country, which is sounds like a lot of money, but you divide it up by 50 states and it varies very much by state, but it is testimony to the fact that all 50 states recognize the value of energy efficiency. So that's what we do. We work on policy in the states.
How does this work kind of mechanically? Do I, as a contractor, come to you and ask for your assistance?
Sure. And love the question and want to make a pitch in response as well. As the Building Performance Association, we try to work on policy in all 50 states. But what makes us different from maybe other advocacy organizations is because we work with industry allies and contractors directly. We oftentimes are able to collaborate with them when we advocate for policy changes. So the home run scenario, and it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, we're always pleased, is to visit a state decision maker with a contractor. And the moment I am able to get out of the way and allow a contractor to say, my office is in your district. I have 7 people on my payroll. Our business is important, obviously, to me, but it's important to the community because the work we're doing to lower folks' electricity bills. And if it stops there, it's a home run. If there's an issue on the table that they are concerned about, maybe a new piece of legislation or a program that is being phased out that they like, that don't think it should be phased out, at that point, the legislator will look, not at me with my fancy graphs or something like that, they'll look right at the contractor and be responsive in the most helpful way. Delighted to hear your business is here in my district, or maybe even across the district in my colleague's district. I'm glad you're here to voice your concern about a policy change or an issue that's floating, and that is the most effective way for us to help with policy. So it's kind of a two-way street. In many states, contractors contact us either through their organization or directly and say, here's an issue, what can we do about it? That's a great source of information for us. And oftentimes that's how we are aware of different issues in different states. But number two, we draft letters, we do research, we put together reports, we do all the stuff that you would expect policy folks to do, and we will draft testimony, on our own behalf or on a contractor or our industry associate's behalf. But what we really like to do is work directly with contractors, and it makes us way more effective when we can advocate together. I can give you a few examples of that if you would like.
Why don't you? Yeah.
About a year and a half ago, a program named Empower, which is the energy efficiency program in Maryland, when Empower was up for reauthorization. We worked with American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. We worked with some other groups. They wrote a few reports about the effectiveness in the past, effectiveness, projections in the future. But what we did, which was a little bit different from everyone else, we had 24 contractors in Maryland. And we went down to Annapolis and we did 48 visits with legislators. And we purposely visited folks who had at one phase in the voting on Empower voted against it. So,
Mm.
so we went in with contractors to explain why it was a good program. And I can only tell you, the following conversation was repeated time after time, and each time it was effective. Hello, Representative so and so. My name is. I have an office on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I have 10 employees. If with Empower in place, I have 10 employees in place. If Empower goes away, I'll have, I don't know, 7 or 8, or maybe 6. But we're doing great work. The utility is saving resources on their end. The consumer, we're lowering their bills. It reduces demand, reduces bills, reduces pollution. It's a great, it's great across the board. And the response we got from state representatives and state senators was, geez, I didn't know you were in my district, or I had no idea that's what your business did, or I had no idea that this program even existed. I have 200 bills sitting on my desk here. We have 45 days to get through all these things. And oftentimes, I have to call leadership or one of the experts, and I'm not even sure what is in the bill. And thank you for telling me about this program. And I believe in those 48 visits, I think we changed a lot of votes. The bill eventually passed both houses, signed by the governor or approved by the governor. So Empower continued. But it was that kind of educational program. What did we ask the contractors to talk about? Themselves. I mean, they knew something about Empower because they work with it, but they didn't have to draft a letter. They didn't have to draft like a set of talking points. It was just, this is who I am. This is what I do. And this is where I live.
You sent the experts in who were experts on themselves and
Oh,
their business to educate the other experts. They're different, and now they're partnering.
right.
They know each other now.
That relationship is just critically important. For example, when we were in New York at our conferences last Tuesday and Wednesday, one of the contractors said to me, geez, I really want to get involved. What should I do? So we were sitting, in a bar, and I said, you should get on your phone now, figure out who your state rep and your state senator are, and make an appointment. Just on a rainy day or some day that you're not busy, and I'm not talking about it like a 2 hour conversation. I'm talking about this is a 5 minute how you doing kind of conversation. And he was like, what do I talk about? And I said, how many people do you have on your payroll? And he was like, well, I have like 6. And I said, there you go, there's your story. You got your name, you got your address, and your business. And then the icing on the cake would be a little bit about what you do in a house when you get in there and what it looks like when you leave. But that's bonus. The moment one of these representatives, whether he or she knows you're in the district, you're a small business, and that you would like to get to know them, that is the beginning of hopefully a long and productive dialogue. So it was funny. He was like, oh, well, like, what do you do? Like to me, and I said, well, once that introduction happens, if there is an issue, if there, I said this in New York, we were talking a lot about this new NYSERDA program on energy efficiency to achieve carbon electrification and carbon reductions. I'm like, if there's a detail of that you want input on, we could write talking points and you could deliver that message at some point down the road. But just establishing that simple relationship. And I know with my own state rep, but it's not unusual in other towns. You may see them in the grocery store after that, or you may see them in a restaurant, or you may see them around. So it's just good to get to know them. And the best time to get to know them is when you really don't have you don't need anything. Establish the relationship, figure out who they are. And when the moment arrives that you have a question or a need or a suggestion, then it's like a natural part of the conversation.
And he is now educated on this, having met you in person.
Everybody's busy in their businesses. I'd say state reps and state senators are no different. They're
Sure.
busy, but they're really not any busier than someone running a small business. So they have time. Sometimes it's as good or better to get to know their staff.
Well, goodness gracious, this is what they do. This is the job they've chosen. This
Yes,
is the service that they are in.
Yes, and so sometimes the staffers may know a lot more about the programs that you're concerned about. So get it, but getting to know the member, getting to know their staff. Recommendation number one: get to know talk to us. That's a given. But get to know your state representative. They want to know you. They want to know what you do, and what you do is so connected to issues that they are involved with all the time when they approve budgets, when regulations go through the Public Utility Commission. There's lots of areas for
I would
inputs.
even argue that they want us to come in and introduce ourselves because it makes their job quite a bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're in energy efficiency and you're a contractor, you got a great story to tell. I mean, it's the fastest growing area in the clean energy economy. There's 2.4 million jobs in energy efficiency nationwide. That's more than any other energy sector. It's fastest growing. It's the most dynamic. You're walking into a situation with a state representative, and you work in an industry that creates jobs. It saves customers money. It makes businesses more competitive when they do, when they save energy. And oh, by the way, it's good for the environment.
Right.
If
And it's good
if
for
if
people's health.
and it's good for people's health. So which part of this story is bad? And the government is a part of it. I mean, every utility is a regulated monopoly. It's been that way for 150 years, and that's not even a nobody's proposing that we really change the overall structure. It's just how do you structure the incentives to save consumers money on their electricity bills, reduce the amount of electricity being used, keep the lights on. It's
Mhm.
it's more complicated than meets the eye, but it shouldn't be controversial how to get there.
I've always appreciated people who are willing to put on a tie and go into those chambers of and actually speak on behalf of this industry. It's a
Yes,
trio. It's me
yes.
as the contractor, it's my representative in government, and it's you.
Because we're trying to cover 50 states, and because it's difficult to keep track of everything that's happening in every state, we are relying on contractors and other nonprofits and other trade associations to flag issues as they're developing.
So now we know what there is to do. I mean, I think that's becoming more and more clear.
Right. Right. So we try to cover as many issues as we can. When we can't cover an issue ourselves, we make sure that maybe another industry ally is aware and
Hmm.
can get out in front of it. We rely on a lot of contractors to give us heads up on issues in states where they're organized and they've got sort of an awareness and a willingness on advocacy. We deploy them in state capitals. We're delighted to do that where we can. So there's, we rely on them, and yes, I think they rely on us to do some research for them.
Absolutely. Participation in this trilogy of policy change just became clearer to me just from this conversation. The process involves me in a way that is possible for me. I'm more inspired to actually do that because I can.
Right.
My experience in activism is showing up in a samba band, with a million people marching in the streets.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Right. So it's not shutting down the World Bank.
Sometimes they will have stakeholder meetings in the agency that's planning the new road or the new hospital or the new energy efficiency program, whatever the initiative might be. They will structure, let's have a stakeholder meeting, let's have input from people in the industry and others. So the visit to the state rep or the state senator is not the only way to
Mhm.
get involved.
Mhm.
It's always their job to represent you, independent of any program that's going on. And I think you alluded to it earlier. You're making their job easier
Mhm.
because you're putting yourself on their radar screen. There's lots of different types of state reps and state senators, but I've never met one who doesn't care about jobs in their
Right.
district. That's universal. So it's worth the effort. Any way that we can help, either in raising issues in a formal proceeding, sending in comments, responding. And once in a while, yes, we do go down and testify ourselves. But our preferred method is to march in with somebody who really knows the business and who's very articulate and knows that's a contractor. So I'm always willing to take the back seat to when we get a meeting to because I've seen them do it time and time again, and it's really exciting actually to get a contractor in for one of those visits. Now, having said that, I understand that's a day off from work, and it's very difficult to do.
I think that just as much as it benefits them to know what you do, it benefits me to know what they do.
Exactly. And they may tell you, hey, if you have a concern about this, contact my colleague over there.
Great.
You know, they're the expert. I listen
Mhm,
to him or her all the time
mhm, mhm,
on this.
mhm,
So go
mhm.
convince him or her, and
Right.
I'm with you. So it's
So, Building Performance Association has a couple of policy people in place. There's yourself, Carousel Rinaldi.
that's right.
And how do we keep abreast of what you're up to?
Well, be using the magazine a little bit more as an outlet for communicating. BPA has a newsletter. We have a website, and generally, in every month in the newsletter, we'll usually have a state update and a federal update. We'll cover a topic or two that is hot in either place. In addition to that, at the national conference, we usually have a few sessions on what's hot in the states or the latest update on federal issues. So we try to do a little bit of updating across our platforms.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, Joe. It's great to talk to you.
Great. Yes.
And happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, as they say. Great. Thank you, Leslie.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
You've been listening to an interview with Joe Cullen, Director of Policy and Outreach for Building Performance Association. Our theme music is by Tim Walker of Bowfunk. Find details of how to subscribe to Building Performance Association's regular newsletter, how to become a member of the association, and how to locate your own state's representatives in the show notes. This is Building Performance Talk. I'm Leslie Jackson.